Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. A good fun topic today, for the most part. Let's do it. What's the most creative punishment you received as a child? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe.
My sisters and I would have to memorize passages from Shakespeare together. It was horrible to be fighting and then sit together for half an hour or more, memorizing and reciting until my dad returned. One wrong word, and he'd leave us for a while. Probably the worst part is it made me hate Shakespeare. I've had corporal punishment and all that, but this stuck out. My best friend and I snuck out and walked to the nearby convenience store late at night in 6th grade. My father made me write a 20-page research paper on Watergate. I have no idea why he chose the topic, but the knowledge has come in handy many times in my life. This is kinda different because the punishment wasn't bad. We were visiting our cousins, and then the adults decided to visit Expo 88. I really wanted to go, but for some reason, everyone else went except me and my cousin the same age. Before they left for the day, they told us don't go riding your bikes up and down the street, and don't go lighting fires. Well, the first thing we do when they left is go riding bikes up and down the street. It was more like a steep road, and we would go to the top and coast down to see how fast we could get. Next thing was to take up some leaves and play with fire. Anyway, they come home and somehow know about the riding the bikes from a neighbor and also notice the burnt leaves around the yard. We got marched inside and put through the usual interrogation, and then my uncle decides we must be punished. He takes off his belt, leads my cousin into a bedroom, and shortly after I hear 3 hard whacks, each followed by loud yelps of pain. My cousin comes out, tears streaming down his face, and my uncle walks over and hands the belt to my dad, who then leads me into the bedroom. I'm petrified. He closes the door and looks at me. "Son, I can't hit you with this." He grins. "Just lie on the bed and I'll hit it beside you, and you yell out and pretend it hurts." So that's what we did. And then I had to do my best impression of a crying, scolded boy when I left the room. My uncle gave Dad a look like, "Good job," and we kept the secret for years. When my cousin finally found out, he couldn't believe it. In fact, it was usually my mom who would punish us. Dad was a bit of a free spirit and probably thought it was funny we broke the rules. When I was 5 or 6, definitely old enough to know better, I bit my older sister directly on the stomach. Left top and bottom teeth imprints. It wasn't something minor. Mom grabbed a dog collar and leash, then tied me to a doorknob for several hours. If you act like a dog, you get treated like a dog. Not my punishment, but my brother's. He was in kindergarten and often got physical with other kids by pushing them and whatnot. After being told a couple of times by the teacher, my dad had enough. When my brother and I got home from school, he asked my brother to get his 3 favorite Game Boy games. I went upstairs, as I suspected something terrible was about to happen. My mom and dad took my brother out to the garage, gave him a hammer, and told him to smash the games to bits. I could hear my brother screaming bloody murder, and my dad yelling back to swing the hammer. After a couple seconds and screams, I heard a ping as the hammer bounced off the plastic game laying on the concrete. Then another, and another, and yet another. I was absolutely petrified as I could hear my brother screaming in horror. He never lashed out again, and I made damn sure not to misbehave, as it mentally scarred me too just from hearing it. When I was a kid, like pre-teen, I still often slept in my mom's king-size bed. Single parent, only child, it didn't seem that weird. Sometimes we shared, sometimes she slept. In my single, whatever, just setting the tone. At one point, she started seeing some guy, and he came over unexpectedly to spend the night. She was super drunk. He probably was too, to be honest. And she obviously wanted me out of her bed. So middle of the night, on a weeknight, she comes rampaging up the stairs and starts screaming at me for not sleeping in my own room and threatening to beat me senseless if I don't move immediately. I'm full on sleeping at this point, not a gentle waker. I'm a grumpy, emotional preteen, and she's a chronic alcoholic, so our relationship isn't great. She starts making these demands, and on the fight or flight spectrum, I prepare for war. I don't really know the how or why the details, but I guess the boyfriend had been on the dike earlier that day and come across, of all things, a dead heron. And being the strange, drunk man he was, rather than leave this majestic dead thing in its place to decompose as nature intended, he cut off one of its wings to bring home to my mom as some sort of trophy. Unbeknownst to me, this item became the threat she used next when I refused to relocate sleeping spaces. She truly did attempt to beat me senseless with the severed wing of a very large bird. I entered foster care not 6 months later. That update thing people do. Thanks a lot to everyone for the support and encouragement. I didn't expect to wake up to this, and it's been super encouraging to read all your kind words. I pay a guy $50 a session to listen to my stories, and here you all are doing it for free. I can keep up with responding to everyone, but I've read every comment and done my best. Get your own bed. I loved reading as a kid. My father realized sending me to my room wasn't a punishment. My father is an English professor. He got good. After a while, my punishment wasn't to go to my room. It was to watch C-SPAN. I would have to watch politics for hours, and we would talk about it. I was one of the few, if only 12-year-olds, who could talk about the Senate, the House, who's trying to push through what. As a grown-up now, I'm thankful. As a kid, I was stunned. How did he come up with something so anti-useful? When I was a kid, I was in my grandparents' place. Whenever I was sick, I had to swallow a tablespoonful of whiskey. Made me throw up every time. It didn't matter what the medical problem was. I got a tablespoon of whiskey. Poison ivy, whiskey. Flu, whiskey. Food poisoning, whiskey. Fell out of a tree and scrapped myself up real bad, whiskey. I think I was punished for being weak. There was no winning. If Grandma or Grandpa suspected that I wasn't feeling 100%, they'd straight out ask me what was wrong, and I had to say something or risk worse punishments. I've always loved music. When CDs were still relevant, iPods were barely known. Pandora and Spotify didn't exist. The time when it was Napster versus LimeWire. My mother took all my music away for a month. On the third week, she gave me one CD back, Deftones' White Pony. After she gave everything back, I got to rediscover all my favorites. It was an interesting punishment and the best reward for enduring. My dad is a graduate school professor, and he made us write essays about what we had done wrong, why it was wrong, and what we should have done instead. We had to cite sources and use outside information or research. My dad would then read and correct the content and grammar of the essays until they were deemed satisfactory. We were basically grounded until the essay was complete and considered good enough. The worse the punishment, the longer the essay and the harder he critiqued it. For example, you left the dishes in the sink after being told way too many times. Pretty soon you were writing a short essay about germs and proper food handling, etc. I remember specifically getting caught drinking in the garage when I was 16. My dad was pissed, and I had to write a 20-page essay about what the consequences of teenage drinking were to my 16-year-old brain, how much legal trouble I could have gotten into, and how much legal trouble my parents could have gotten into for allowing teenage drinking. Huge pain, but it got us thinking about topics we usually didn't think too in-depth about, and it was better than having my parents yell and scream. Usually by the end of the essay writing process, both parties would have chilled out, and a calm discussion would follow.
I'm definitely the more passive parent in my parent and co-parenting relationship, and my wife is definitely more direct. I think she used this as kind of like a map of what she could do next to her son. So she's laughing right now. So if you're young, don't let your parents listen to this, because some of these are terrible and abusive, but some of them are darn creative and pretty funny. So be warned.
In my birth family, the only punishment other than being spanked with a hairbrush was the silent treatment and shunning, and it was terrible because we were never told what we had done wrong or even what the rules were. We would have to silently guess what rule we had broken. There was no prize or guessing right, and the silent treatment could go on for days or longer. It was bad because it made me really jumpy, made it hard for me to trust people, and because I then had to teach myself how to speak up instead of sulking to communicate. I was a 16-year-old girl. We had 4 cats. It was my job to care for them because I wanted them, but I'd often forget to clean the litter boxes and make someone else do it because it stunk and it was gross, especially when one of the cats were sick. I've been warned about it a couple of times, but kept doing it. One day when I was at school, my mom moved all the litter boxes into my bedroom. She replaced the litter with a kind that doesn't reduce odor at all. She specifically told me I was not allowed to open the windows and I had to sleep in there. Couldn't go to sleep on the couch. Oh my god, it doesn't sound like much, but it was so bad. I'd rather be spanked. It lasted for a week before she let me move them back out into the laundry room again. My mom made me write "I will not talk back to my mom." I believe it was 500 times. I couldn't write the sentence, one word at a time, making columns with the words to get it done fast. She made me write the full sentence out one at a time. After I was done, I gave it to her. She looked the paper over and tore them up in front of me. My mom was always taking my books away because I'd read instead of doing my homework. Also, my mom would go through the trash and punish me based on what I ate. In middle school, my parents took all my makeup away from me because I hated leaving the house without it. I got a C in math in 8th grade, and there was nothing left to take away, so my parents decided I would move in with my dad and go to a different high school than all my friends as punishment. I'm 22, and I've been paying my own phone bill for 4 years, but my mom still tries to take my phone away from me if she feels like I'm on it too much. When I was in 2nd grade, I made a comment to my mom about how I always seen on the TV that the mom cooks and cleans while the dad sits on the couch all day. But in our family, it was the opposite. My dad was also the sole breadwinner of the family. This did not sit well with my mom. She took away all of my clothes, locked me out of my bedroom, made me sleep on the hallway floor for a while, and would drop me off on the side of the road after school and tell me to walk home. My dad had to take me to the store to get new clothes with my life savings, which at 8 years old was $60. This was in the name of showing me all that she does for me. When I was around 16, I told this to a counselor, and they informed me this is abuse, and my parents would have been arrested if I had told any of my teachers. I experienced abuse as a kid from a few different adults, but the punishment were called snow baths. We lived in northern Michigan, where it gets really cold and the snow was deep. When me and my sister acted up, we were made to strip naked and go outside and roll around in the snow for a few minutes until we recovered. This was in the 70s, and I was between 7 and 9 years old, and my sister's younger. Amazed I turned out without being a complete head case. I have a couple. Because I was short, at the age of 8, my guardian told me that I needed to grow taller. But since I couldn't, because I don't think I can grow taller just by thinking about it, she made me jump every day and reach for the doorframe. She justified it because NBA players are tall and they jump. So if I jumped and pretended to dunk a basketball, I'll grow taller. I also took piano lessons. I would practice for 2 hours a day, every day. When I would mess up on one song, note-wise or speed-wise, I'd have to play 2 more times. One time it added up to the point that I needed to play the piece over 200 times. I refused to spend my whole day playing it, so my guardian took my piano book and locked me outside of the house for an hour. This one might be common, but whenever they didn't like my behavior or my actions in general, they'd confiscate all of my electronics and turn off the Wi-Fi. That one hurt the most. Not sure it's unique, but I had a welt on my leg for a week in the shape of a wooden spoon. The welt from part of the handle only lasted a day. It was awful. Summertime, so I was in shorts when she hit me. Why did she hit me? I was 12 and my parents' friends came over to help paint my bedroom. Their kids were younger than me, but they got to help. I asked to help too and was told no. So I asked why kids younger than myself got to paint and I didn't. I was just asking. I truly didn't understand. So she hit me with the spoon and was screaming about how all I did was sass and what an ungrateful little bitch I was. My stepdad wasn't home to intervene, sadly. He had a different way of punishing me. I was 14 when he passed away, and even at 14, if I needed punished, my ass got sent to the corner. Even if I had friends over, it was beyond embarrassing. Still better than the spoon, or the shoe, the fly swatter, the belt, whatever item was handy to my mom. He died 31 years ago, and I still miss him every damn day. She died 2 years and 3 days ago, and I still don't give a shit. Shower hour. Our school had the online grade lookup, so whenever a 0 was posted for my assignment, we had to sit in the shower for 1 hour. This was for each 0. Every day, till that 0 was taken out of the grade book. Obviously, the water wasn't on. You just sat in the bathtub with your school books and no phone, no music, no company, etc. I only had to do it once or twice, but my brother and sister had to do it much more often. It was recommended to my parents by our family counselor. When I was in 7th grade, I got 2-day suspension for fighting. We were playing kickball, and this one kid, Alexis, was being a real dick with everyone, purposely trying to bean them as a pitcher and running into them trying to knock them over when he was taking a base. I'm playing second base at one point, and he runs into me like that, knocks me back. He was pretty fat, so it was a hard hit, and I just lost it and got up and started throwing punches. The gym teacher came and broke us up right away and dragged us to the principal's office. I'm lucky that it wasn't now, because I would have probably gotten expelled, but I got off with just 2 days of suspension. I explained to my parents why I was fighting, and they understood I was just standing up to an asshole. It just so happened that my grandfather and aunt were visiting from Mexico during that time. That aunt is 7 years younger than me. My grandfather had another kid with his new wife in his 60s, and my parents decided that my punishment would be to babysit and play with her the 2 days I was out of school. I always found it funny that my punishment for fighting was being a babysitter so my dad and my grandpa could go do more stuff without a hyper little kid. I thought I was a badass at 15 and snuck a bottle of Hennessy into my room. I hid it in the closet and would drink some with my friends after school. Well, my mom decided to clean my room randomly and found the bottle. When I got home, my dad made me sit down and put the bottle in front of him. He then put out 3 glasses and called my little sister, 13, and brother, 11, and told them to sit with me. He then poured 3 glasses of Henny and told me to serve it to my siblings. I said, "No way." And he asked why not. And I said, "Because they're too young." To which he replied, "You are too." So he made me pour everything down the sink. To this day, I never bring alcohol to my father's house. That psychological punishment stuck with me for life. I was 6 years old. The teacher, Miss White, divided the entire class into a sunny side for the good children, complete with a smiling picture of a sun, and a cloudy side for the bad children, complete with a frowning, sad picture of a cloud. So 2 or 3 bad kids were made to sit on the floor on one side, while the good kids enjoyed the sunny side. I think teachers would be sued for such things in 2018. This was a year after the block, so 5-year-olds were effectively made to go sit on the wooden block in a far, empty, cold corner of the classroom facing a concrete wall and to think about what they had done. So yeah, wasn't good. There was that one time my sister and I were caught up in the usual sibling rivalry. I won whatever the dispute was that time, and as is childhood tradition, I blew a raspberry. She, however, runs to our parents, crying that I spat on her, which is to be expected, but let's be real, it's never that much. It should be noted that my dad worked at the nearby prison at the time before I go any further, not as a guard, but in the infirmary. I'm sure it was still a hostile enough environment, but nowhere near as bad as being out in Gen Pop. He hears about this and goes absolutely ballistic. In his mind, from how she worded it, I had hawked a giant loogie right in my sister's face, but in reality, it was a few micro drops max. Everyone goes to bed that night, and I wake up and come outside like usual. Mom's unusually silent and says only, "Your father wants to talk to you." So, unsuspecting child me goes and finds him. I'm then escorted back to my room, and the punishment begins. I get a lecture on how, since I want to act like an inmate, I'll get treated like an inmate, or something along those lines. He draws imaginary boundaries in my room that under no conditions am I to cross, essentially creating a prison cell. Before you ask, why didn't I just ignore those and make the most of being confined to my room with all my fun things? The door was kept open and checked very often, but due to imaginary boundaries, I was to picture it as a cell door. That's right, I'm an inmate for a day and I'm not even 10 years old. The attention to detail was thought through fairly well. I was in a small confined space, scheduled feeding, only let out for 1 hour of recreation, and by that I got to go out into our actual yard and walk laps. I still remember smelling KFC or something else delicious the rest of the family was having for lunch that day, and then being brought a plain basic ham sandwich instead. As far as how bad it was, I can't really say. It was all that bad in and of itself. It's definitely a 12 out of 10 on the what the scale, and was the literal definition of overkill, and no amount of explaining what happened afterwards got so much as an "I'm sorry." My parents spent the rest of our childhood taking any story my sister brought to them as gospel, no matter how much she exaggerated, and even when I was able to show that I hadn't done what I was being accused of, I still got stuck with a minimal punishment, not being allowed to watch TV that day, or whatever.